Hi everyone, my name is Cecilia Vada and I'm going to be your Mood Lifters leader for our time here together. We'll each go around and introduce ourselves. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I'm Patty.
I'm Ted.
I'm Andrea.
I'm Nestor.
I'm Suzanne.
I'm Jenny.
Okay, so we're going to start on page 8 of the participant manual. So Mood Lifters is a low-cost mental health program based on cutting-edge research. It's intended for everyone, and we take a very comprehensive approach, including mind, body, relationships, thoughts, and behaviors. We have 3 parts to our program here. We have the meetings, the homework, and our tracking, which we do through a point system, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. Our meetings will include topics from each of those areas that I just mentioned. We'll learn about research and new skills. You guys are welcome to ask questions and stop me at any point where I'm not making sense or you just have a question. And you'll share your experiences with the program, your struggles and your triumphs, and you'll make a plan for the coming week. So how are we going to integrate what we learned into your life? So that's just an overview of the meetings. Your homework, you'll be working on goals that we set in each meeting, which will be related to the topic of that meeting. Your key to success is to consistently do activities that help you meet your goals and are related to the topics in the program, even if you don't feel like doing them. Our goal here is really to make healthy behaviors a habit. We will build on what you learn each week, and you'll continue doing the things that we talk about in the first meeting, in the second meeting, and then once we get to the third meeting, you'll continue doing things from the previous meetings. So really, it's to get these things to be a habit, and you'll continue to practice them through your time here in the program. But a check-in is of the first part of every meeting, and this will help you track your progress over time and help us track your progress over time and see if you're at any point needing more care. So now we're going to be on page 10, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the point system works. I mentioned that a little bit ago. So each week you're going to fill out a point sheet that's in your little booklet, and it's called your weekly tracking booklet. You're going to earn points based on your at-home goals. And your points are really going to be different for everyone, and you'll see how that works over the course of the program. You'll include points from all meetings eventually. So for example, like I said, after meeting 2, you'll still earn points from meeting 1, and moving forward, you'll continue to earn points from the previous meetings. Points are not intended to promote any type of competition between members. Everyone has their own struggles, and everyone's going to have their own individual goals. And so some weeks you may earn none at all, other weeks you may earn all of them, and we encourage you to come in and talk about your experiences every week with how points went for you that week. We're only going to celebrate your points earned. This isn't about you didn't get this done or you did get this done. It's about what helped and what were you able to integrate into your life. We'll discuss barriers at the beginning of each meeting, so if you had any particular challenges that made it hard to earn points that week, we'll talk about those, and you'll get a chance to hear from other participants who may or may not have struggled with similar things. And that way, moving forward, you can change your behavior and hopefully learn how to get those points more easily. We really encourage you to come even if you don't earn a single point, because the group can be helpful moving forward. You might learn something from the barriers, you might learn something new, whatever the new topic is for the week that you find really helpful. So please do come even if you don't earn a single point. So you can go ahead and open your point booklet. So these are those tracking sheets I was talking about a little bit earlier and how we're going to track our points. So we're going to fill out the tracking sheet associated with that particular meeting. So after today's meeting, for next week, you'll fill out meeting 1 point tracking sheet. Each meeting will have a section table, points to earn, and notes on any barriers or things that helped you earn your points that week. So that way we can kind of facilitate that discussion at the beginning of every meeting. You'll track points by checking off 1 box per point earned. So if you see there next to behavior, there's several boxes. You'll check off one of those boxes every time you earn a behavior point this week, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later. At the bottom, you have some space there to write any notes on what helped you earn points or what were any barriers to earning points. At the top of the page is just that table. As you can see, right now there's only behavior change, which is the topic of today's meeting, and that's how you'll earn points this week. And as we continue with the meetings, that table will begin to fill up, and it'll start showing other meetings that you can earn points for moving forward in the program. So next week, you'll hand in that point sheet after tracking what you've done this week. And so each week we'll go ahead and collect that, and then we'll give you stickers in return. And as you can see on the front page, we have a space for you to put each of your stickers in each of those categories where you'll be earning points. And that will create a nice little graph for you over time so you can see areas where it's really easy for you to earn points and maybe some other areas of challenge. Does anybody have any questions about this?
So this box will be filled up later, so we only have to worry about the one that's in color right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And it'll also show you which category it's under.
Okay. So the categories are the 5 at the 6 at the top?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? No?
So
Okay.
what happens if we get more than 5 points?
You get more than 5 points, then you write them in that, it says it right below that, did you earn any extra behavior
Oh,
points this week?
that's okay.
And you can write any additional than 5. So if you earn 6, you'll write 1 in that line.
Okay.
Do you need us to like write the days of the week or what we did to get the points or?
No, you'll just check off the box either with an X, you can color it in, whatever makes most sense for you to check it off.
Do we get extra stickers if we do extra points?
You do not get extra stickers at this time if you earn extra points. But if you're into the stickers, we encourage you to earn all the points for all the categories because that's how you'll get the most stickers. We do like to make an important note now that Mood Lifters is not a replacement for professional therapy. It's really a mental wellness program to use alone if you feel like that's enough care for you, or in conjunction with other types of care if you're currently seeking other mental health care as well. Okay, so now we'll go back to page 11, so you can put your point booklets aside. And here we have our ground rules. So Mood Lifters may touch on difficult topics for you, and remember that I am here for you, and our helper is also here for you. And so you're welcome to bring up anything to us prior to or after the meeting if you feel like we touch on something or there's anything else that you'd like to talk about or any other questions that you have. But we like to lay out some ground rules so we can make this a safe place for people to kind of talk about some of these things even when they get a little bit challenging. So we'll go ahead and each read one of these ground rules here. Patty, you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. The first one is maintain confidentiality. In other words, what is said here stays here.
It's important that everyone in the group feel like they can talk about things that are personal.
Everything that happens in Mood Lifters is confidential. However, there are important exceptions to confidentiality. Mood Lifters instructors must break confidentiality in cases of possible harm to self, harm to others, and child and elder abuse.
Don't talk to people outside the group about things that other people say in the meetings.
You might find that someone said something helpful and want to share it with a friend. It's okay to talk about things you learned in general. For example, you might say, another person in group is having problems with their spouse, and that person said something that made me think. Just don't use names or specifics.
You may run into people from Mood Lifters at the grocery store, at your work or theirs, at the movies, anywhere. It's okay to say hi, but don't expect a connection outside of group. That might be uncomfortable for some people.
Listen to and respect everyone.
Never make fun of anyone else's ideas or situation.
Don't interrupt others when they are talking.
Turn off mobile phones.
Everyone has the right to pass if they are not ready to share something. That said, we believe that participation and doing work at home will lead to the best results.
Don't give advice, rather share what struggles you've had and how you overcame them.
Use I statements to describe your experiences. This will help others relate to you.
Thank you everyone for reading. Does anyone have any other ground rules that they would like to add? Okay, so if you want to turn to page 12. So we talked a lot about points, and we'll talk about how we set our goals into points, but we do want to have a little time here to talk about goal setting in general. So each week you'll set what your goals are to earn your points using your weekly planning sheet, which is in your manual at the end of every single section. And you'll have a new weekly planning sheet at the end of every one. Your weekly planning sheet will help you plan how to practice what we talked about in today's meeting at home. And so it'll have different days of the week, and it'll tell you kind of what your goals are for each particular day of the week. It'll tell you how many points you need to earn from each section in the top row. And if a column is grayed out, that means that we haven't gotten to that section yet and you aren't responsible for earning points in that area. But it will become white when we get to the meeting that is associated with that particular column. So you'll use the space in each day to write what you'd like to do during the week to earn your points. Part of your success in this program relies on your ability to set goals and your ability to follow through with them. So on pages 12 and 13 in our manual, we have a lot of tips for goal setting and how to set good goals so that you can kind of have some skills to just get integrated and ready for the program. So we won't discuss all of the tips today, but at the bottom of page 12, we have some information about the SMART method of setting goals. So the SMART method stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So we'll each go around and read one of the parts of the acronym. Jenny, would you like to start?
Sure. Specific. Ask yourself why, what, where, how, when, and with whom.
Measurable. Decide what evidence you would need to know you had met your goal.
Attainable. Determine whether you have the amount of time, money, skill, and or effort needed to achieve this goal.
Relevant. Understand why you want to achieve this goal and what makes it meaningful to you.
Time bound. Set a deadline or multiple to keep you on track.
Okay, so the SMART method will help you make the most of Mood Lifters and make it easier for you to earn your points every week. Does anybody have any questions about the goal setting or the SMART method? Okay. I'd like to just open up. Does anyone have any questions about the program in general? We kind of finish the program part of it. Does anyone have any questions about that before we get started with the content for today's meeting? Okay. So, if you turn to page 14, we're going to move on to the topic of today, which is behavior change. So this includes improving your mood by participating in pleasurable activities. So people who are feeling down often stop participating in activities that they enjoy. And this inactivity leads to a cycle of kind of negative feelings because you're not doing anything, which leads you to not engage in activities even more, leading to more negative mood, leading to less activities, and it kind of cycles down that way. And that can lead to feelings of hopelessness and a just general loss of pleasure in the activities that you're doing every day. Fortunately, this downward cycle can be reversed by re-engaging in some of these pleasurable activities. And we call this restarting of these activities behavioral activation. And research shows that this is one of the most important things for improving mood and overall well-being. We like to say you might not enjoy these activities as much as you used to when you first start them, and we really encourage you to stick with them and to keep trying, and that pleasure will slowly come back. So as I mentioned, this is about restarting these pleasurable activities. So in the middle of page 14 in your manual, we have two types of pleasure. I think these are important to outline when we're thinking about re-engaging with these pleasurable activities. Can I have a volunteer read the two different types of pleasure?
I can do it. The two types of pleasure, anticipatory and consumatory. Consumatory pleasure is the in-the-moment feeling of satisfaction, like how you feel when you enjoy a good movie or meal. Anticipatory pleasure is a feeling of satisfaction or excitement you get in anticipation of an activity, which leads you to actually follow through with it, like how you feel when you're planning a fun event with your friends.
Thank you. So a good example of this is I really love to read. That's something that I find very pleasurable. So when I'm actually reading, I'm feeling a lot of that consumatory pleasure. I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting involved with the story. I'm learning about the characters. But when I usually plan that I'll read maybe before bed or something like that, I am in anticipation of reading. I feel a lot of that anticipatory pleasure. So I'm really looking forward to reading and experiencing the pleasure once I get to start reading. Can anyone think of any examples of the two different types of pleasure in their own lives?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Like I really like sushi. When I eat sushi, I'm always excited about it, but I never choose to eat sushi. Like if they ask me, hey, do you want to eat sushi? I'm always like, no. So I think I miss the anticipatory pleasure for sushi, but I have a lot of consummatory pleasure for sushi.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share an example in their life?
I think travel would be for me. Like, I really, really enjoy traveling and experiencing it. I have a vacation coming up and I've been like nervous, excited for a week now, to the point where I'm like not sleeping because I'm so like nervous excitement. So I think it's a lot of like that anticipatory pleasure as well.
Oh, that's great. Anyone else want to share? Okay, so people experiencing low mood often experience a consumatory aspect of pleasure, but not the anticipatory part of pleasure. And when we think about that in that cycle, they're not experiencing that anticipatory pleasure, they're unlikely to actually engage in that activity to begin with. And so then they're not very motivated, and then they're losing out on that consumatory pleasure that they could really be experiencing. So part of what we're going to be doing today is really making a commitment to participate in these activities that are pleasurable for us, and then slowly beginning to experience that pleasure again, both the consumatory and the anticipatory. Anybody have any questions about the consumatory or anticipatory pleasure?
when we're supposed to earn points, is it basically just doing homework for things that we like to do? I mean, is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes, that is the homework for this week. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end exactly about what it is that you'll be doing to earn points. But that is the general gist of this meeting, yes.
Okay.
Is that you get to have your homework be doing fun things that you enjoy.
And it can be both, like, should you choose things that bring you both types of pleasure, or does it matter?
Well, it depends on where you're at. Like we said, some people with low mood might not experience that anticipatory pleasure, and that's absolutely okay. And some people might be at a point where they're actually not even experiencing that consumatory pleasure, and that's also okay. We just want you to make a commitment to re-engaging with some of these activities that used to bring you pleasure or joy. And whatever stage you're at, that you can be experiencing both or either or none, but making that commitment is what's most important.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So in addition to these pleasurable activities, another important part of this behavior change is engaging in activities that are also valuable. And so we'll talk about what might make an activity valuable now. Can I have a volunteer read at the bottom those 2 bullet points, accomplishment and steps towards mastery?
There are 2 ways that an activity is valuable: a sense of accomplishment or taking practice steps towards mastery. Accomplishment comes from finishing something, and steps towards mastery or practicing is improving your skills at something you find valuable.
So finding value can be a challenge, and you might think it will turn out badly because you haven't done something in a long time. So for example, if there's a skill that maybe you're playing the guitar or something and you haven't played in a really long time, you might not be looking forward to being at a lower skill level, because people do lose skills over time, and that's okay. So be kind to yourself and kind of some of that self-compassion when you're trying these new activities that might be a challenge kind of restarting. So some good examples of this for accomplishment, a lot of people always talk about kind of cleaning things, doing those chores that we are not the most excited about, but really do give you that sense of accomplishment when you're done. Like, wow, things are more organized, and I really like that feeling. And then again, that steps towards mastery, some good examples of that are, playing an instrument, learning something new, maybe exercising, building strength, for example, is also a good example of that steps towards mastery. Can anyone else give me some examples of either of those 2 types of value or something that might be valuable to them?
Doing house projects. Like
Like
on
what?
Saturdays, if I have time to fix a door or something, I get really excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of strange, but I do.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's not, it's not the same pleasurable maybe, but it's that sense of accomplishment that you're getting things done. Exactly. Anyone else want to share?
I think working out for me gives me the steps towards mastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great activity. And activities can also do both, right? They can be both pleasurable and valuable at the same time. So you don't necessarily have to choose one or the other if you find that you have activities that do both. Does anybody have any questions about any of these?
Well, I'm kind of listening to other people say what they find either like an accomplishment or valuable, and I'm just wondering, like, what if you have something that other people would think, like, that's just what I do every day and it's no big deal, but I mean, like, what if you're feeling really low and it's just even hard to get out of bed? Like, could that count for something?
Yeah, and I think with mood lifters, what's important is that we really want to meet you where you're at. I mentioned earlier that your points are really based on the goals that you're setting. And so for you, if an accomplishment is getting out of bed, you can absolutely count that as a point.
For me, getting to this meeting would count because I was really nervous about coming here for the first time. So would that be like accomplishment?
Yeah, that would be an accomplishment point. And that's a really common experience. A lot of people feel nervous coming to this very first meeting. And so I'm really happy that all of you guys are here.
So, wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
For accomplishment, it can be finishing something, like, even if you don't like to do it. So if I was writing a paper or something that I wasn't enjoying, but then I got it done, and I didn't enjoy actually doing it, but then I got it done, does that count?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you don't have to experience that pleasure to experience the accomplishment. Oftentimes
okay.
we feel that sense of accomplishment once we're done and we're, oh look, I have this whole paper here that I've written. So that's really, it can be one or the other when you're planning your goals this week.
Like finishing taxes.
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone. Yeah. Okay, anybody have any other questions about this? So if you turn to page 15, we have a long list of different types of pleasurable and valuable activities. It can be really hard to start old activities that you haven't tried in a while. And if it's too threatening to do some activity that maybe you did in the past and no longer engage in, we'd really encourage you to try a new activity and perhaps one of the ones that are on here. And so an important step in this process and kind of setting your goals and earning your points this week is to make a list of activities that you think you can engage in over the course of the program. And those can be kind of smaller activities, like things that you could do every day, and bigger activities, maybe like taking a trip, which you mentioned is something that you like to do. So again, anything with points this week can be either new or old activities. We do have this page here on page 15 of a list of pleasurable and valuable activities. So I'll give you a moment now to read over them, and feel free to circle any of these activities that you may enjoy, or maybe you've enjoyed them in the past, or that you think you might enjoy. If there's anything that's not on that list, feel free to write it at the bottom of page 15.
One of the things I haven't been doing for a long time is canoeing, and I'd really like to try to do that again.
So does that bring you that sense of pleasure or a sense of value?
Pleasure. It's one of my favorite things to do. Or
Great.
used to be when I felt better.
And again, be kind to yourself. If you notice at first that the pleasure isn't there, that's okay. Just kind of making the commitment to continue going canoeing. Any other activities?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I used to be a dancer when I was younger, and I really love to dance, but I don't get out to do it very often, and I don't take classes very often, so that's something I'd like to get back to.
That's great.
Yeah, mine's kind of like that. I used to do a lot of photography, and I recently got a new camera, and I'm still kind of learning how to use it. So I feel like sometimes I don't want to use it because I'm afraid the pictures aren't going to be good, and I used to be really good at it. So, but I've started kind of trying again. So I feel like it's kind of both, because I get excited when I'm going to go take pictures, and I actually enjoy taking pictures. But part of it is to that kind of like mastery of practicing, because I really need to improve those skills. Like you said with dancing, I used to be good at it, but now it's kind of done it in a while. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example of something that brings you both pleasure and has value. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Well, I was looking at it, and I was kind of distracted by things that I think I should be doing, you know? Like, would that count?
So I think it's really important to focus on this. If it's something that you think you should be doing, you may not really experience that much pleasure from it, right? Because it's really what other people want you to be doing. So we really encourage you to focus on things that you know that you enjoy, or that you have enjoyed in the past, or that you might enjoy, rather than things that you think you should be doing or feel like other people would like you to do. That's a great question. Thank you. Anyone else want to share, have any questions about this? So we're going to turn to page 16. And here we have a chart that you can kind of write out those activities maybe you brainstormed from the last page, or any other ones that you can kind of think of as we're talking here. And we're going to give you a few minutes to write down what that activity is, whether that's a practicing skills, if it's a sense of an accomplishment, or pleasurable in that middle column, and then any obstacles you might face, right? Sometimes obstacles come up, and if we don't anticipate them and come up with ways that we might be able to get around them, that can just be an easy reason for us to not engage in that activity. So that's why we have that last column there of obstacles. So we'll take a few minutes now to write down some activities you think you might be able to enjoy. This can be small activities, like things you could do this week or in the next couple of weeks. It could also be larger activities you could do over the course of Mood Lifters. Write down about 3 to 5 activities, or if you have more than that, then that's also great. So I'll give you some time now to do that. So, thanks for taking the time to write that down. So we really want to emphasize again what you mentioned earlier, which was that we really want you to engage in activities that you think you're going to enjoy, not activities that you think you should enjoy. And try to avoid unhealthy behaviors that involve, overeating or drinking alcohol or doing drugs, because that might those aren't really healthy habits that we want to get you guys into. So really, we encourage you to do things outside of those activities. And again, focus on the small activities, especially if you're feeling like you're in a kind of a low mood. It might take a lot of effort to even do those small activities. So start small, and you can get bigger as you continue on in the program. Okay. So if you turn to page 17, we have your first point menu. This is designed to let you know what counts as a point for the coming week and what meetings that you can earn points from. So we have a point menu for every week in the program. So at the end of every meeting, you'll have your weekly point menu, and then you'll have their weekly planning sheet, which we talked about earlier, which you can see on the next page. So the first thing on your point menu are the weekly rules. So I'll give you a moment now to read over the rules. So So then we have the second thing on here is this weekly section table, which you might remember from the weekly point booklet that we talked about earlier. So that's just gonna let you know which meetings you can earn points from for this week. So this week you can see we only have the behavioral change, so that's where the only way you're gonna be earning points this week. And as meetings continue, they'll start filling out this table. And so you'll always be reminded of what points or what meetings you can earn points from. Okay, so after the weekly point rules, we have your weekly section table. And this table is designed to let you know what meetings you can earn points from this week. So as you can see, right now we only have behavioral change in the table, and that is the only meeting you can earn points from this week. As we continue along in the program, you will continue to have the meetings added here, and they'll add to each of the different sections, and so you can see where you can earn points this coming week. Does anybody have any questions about the table? No? And it is the same as what's in your weekly point tracking booklet. Next, we have your what activities count as a point for this meeting. So as you hear, it says how to get behavior change points. This week, you're gonna do one pleasurable or valuable activity, and that can count for 1 point. We encourage you to try and stick with that activity for about 15 minutes at least. It could also be longer than that. That doesn't mean that for every 15-minute increment that you get an additional point. It's for each activity, but we would like you to try and stay with that for at least 15 minutes. It's also only 1 point even if it's both pleasurable and valuable, so keep that in mind as well. But definitely try and mix it up. Try and do some valuable and also some pleasurable as well. This table is also, or this kind of list here, is also in the back of your weekly point booklet. So all of them for all the meetings are also there. So for whatever reason you don't have your manual, you can still have a reminder of how to earn points for that week. And then the last thing we have on this page is how many points you need to earn for that week's section. So this week, you'll earn 5 points for the behavior section. Does anybody have any questions about the point menu?
Could you still get a point if your activity was just naturally less than 15 minutes?
Yeah, that's okay. And again, that idea of meeting participants where they're at, right? Getting out of bed might not take 15 minutes. So really, if it's naturally less than that, that's okay, count it as a point. We do encourage you to do some of these activities that might take a little bit more time as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What if it's an activity that you were already planning on doing, like, for example, going to a movie and you already had that scheduled this week, or is it supposed to be something additional that you're adding in?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can count that as a point, but we really encourage you to be mindful about the pleasure that you're feeling. So kind of noticing if you have some of that anticipatory pleasure or some of the consumatory pleasure, or how you're finding that activity valuable. So bringing some of that mindfulness and awareness of that particular activity. Yeah, good question.
Is the intention that we get points primarily from the activities that we listed, or can be any activity?
It can be any activity that brings you a sense of pleasure or a sense of value. We use that activity to really help you brainstorm, so it might make it easier to plan some things out. But if you're like, oh, I'd really like to try this other thing, feel free to schedule that in as well, and you can earn a point for that. So now if you want to turn to the next page, we have your weekly planning sheet. You'll have, again, like I said earlier, you'll have one of these at the end of every section in the manual, and this will help you plan what days you want to schedule those activities that we talked about earlier today. This will help you be more successful moving forward in the program. We're more likely to do activities once we write them down and plan them for a specific day or a specific time, kind of thinking back to that SMART method. So you'll have some time now to plan out the activities you want to do this week. Again, some people find this page really helpful. Other people kind of like, I have my Google Calendar, I'm going to use my Google Calendar and I'd rather schedule it there. And if that works better for you, we encourage you to do that as well. So, but that idea of keeping that schedule is important and will make you more likely to achieve your goals. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Well, if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay here after the meeting and answer any questions that you might have. You're also welcome to take this time now to plan a little bit, and I will just be here for any questions. And if not, and no other planning to do, you're welcome to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.